some advice I would give to any FM leader that's out there today is, approaching any situation with your eyes wide open, right? You may have gone through that event before. It may be brand new to you, but you do need to come in with your eyes wide open, being able to, playfully understand that, yes, this is a big event or an issue that I need to resolve. But if you're not looking at everything, you're going to make a mistake. If you're not, again, taking that breath and pausing and looking around and saying, who's here today that we can deploy? Who's not here? We need to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right spots, but not being afraid to use your resources. None of us can be successful without our team. We could have all the right playbooks. We could say all the right things, but if you don't have a team behind you, you're not going anywhere, right? You're not going to improve that catastrophic event for the better. You're not going to be able to solve that catastrophic event without them. And it's going to be more difficult. It's very hard to swim upstream in a canoe with a half a paddle.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert, and today's guest is amazing. He's someone who has dedicated over 18 years to the hospitality sector, cultivating a wealth of expertise and experience in engineering and facilities management. He is a certified facility manager, CFM, which is a prestigious designation that demonstrates his deep knowledge and skill in managing the complex systems and operations that are essential to hotel management. What really stands out is his unwavering commitment to continuous improvement and innovation, which drives him to seek opportunities to connect with like-minded individuals and shape the future of engineering and facilities management in hospitality. He was the past president of IFMA, ending his final term in June of 2024. He currently serves as the Senior Director, CapEx and Facilities at Benchmark Senior Living. Frank Rhodes II, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jay. Certainly, it's a pleasure to be here. I know we've been trying to line this up for some time now, and the day has finally come, and I couldn't be more ecstatic and really, truly wanted to say thank you for all you have done for the industry and facilities and putting people like myself out there and being able to have these conversations for others to learn and engage upon in future conversations.
No, I appreciate the kind words, and absolutely my pleasure. I think, meeting you in person at one of our events was amazing, and just getting to know you, Frank. So really appreciate you investing your time with us today.
More than welcome. I'm ready to dive in when you are.
Let's do it. Let's do it, man. So you've had a lot of different roles. You've had a lot of different experiences. You're currently transitioning industries, if you want to word it that way, right? So my question is, what has been your biggest lesson learned through all of that?
I think we all go through evolutions in life. And, one of the things that continuously comes to mind for me is you have to take a breath. In our industry, there is a 24/7 stigma. There is technologies and ways that we're always connected and we want to be plugged into the business. But there are times where you need to take a breath when you're dealing with catastrophes, emergencies, or other, and not respond in the moment, right? Take that breath, write that email, maybe come back to it, reread, resend, if you will, or pick up the phone. There are times where we want to react, but that sometimes gets us into a predicament where we should have paused, taken a moment, and then came up with a strategy and moved forward.
So I love this. And my question for you then is, how did you develop that skill? Because in my experience, that is a skill that needs to be developed. If you're not, it's easy to react, but how do you take a breath and respond? How did you do that?
I would absolutely agree that it took me quite a few hard knocks and failures and stumbling and falling on my face. But I have been very lucky in my career to have had great mentors that have been able to approach me and debrief in those situations that I reacted to and show me how we could have looked at it differently, what was another avenue to take, or what was another way to respond, and what were the reasons behind that with examples from that mentor. So a lot of leaders have put time in to me and developed my own expertise, but they were able to have those backdoor conversations. Let's go to the golf course and just have an offline collaboration session. And that is what helped me learn through their past experiences, their professional expertise, and being able to just walk through things together and allowing me to be a chameleon and a sponge. And that's something a lot of my leaders have told me in my career is that when I take feedback, I'm not taking it personal. There's a business that we all have to run. And the moment that we cross that line into personal, it can be difficult to overcome what's in front of us. But if we look at the business side of it and the aspects that go into it, we can then move forward and transition and take on that feedback in a positive way. I'm someone that loves feedback because I can't learn or grow. I can't help my team if I don't listen and learn. And that's something that I had to do throughout my career is listen and learn. And that was not easy. You know, I came out of a career where I was swinging a hammer for a living. I was a carpenter. So I didn't go to college right away. I went into the trade and I came out of the trade and went into my college degree for FM and architecture, transition into the corporate world. That was a hard transition. I didn't know how to speak, right? I was used to the construction talk. I was used to, getting a suntan, not necessarily putting on a suit, putting on that tie. And a lot of those leaders recognized it, but they saw my potential. So I couldn't be where I am today without leaders giving expertise and those hard conversations behind closed doors or out on a golf course.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Couple of follow-ups on, you just shared a lot there. So when you mentioned that not to take things personal and you receive feedback very well, my view is that someone who's able to do that has a lot of self-confidence and really understands who they are, right, and what they offer. How did you learn that? Or was that developed over time as well for you in terms of receiving feedback and taking it in a very constructive manner?
This is something I have to give Marriott International recognition for. They invested a lot into my growth. And that started with the emerging leadership program, where we could take those surveys and get to understand who you are, what do we do as a leader, and what answers we gave to those discussion topics or those scenarios allowed us to learn who we are and why we react to those DISC surveys. I attended the advanced engineering program with Marriott. All of the things that they do to put time and investment into their associates and their leaders that have potential is the reason why I can be where I'm at today and learn those lessons. So it was without Marriott International, I couldn't have done it on my own, but they did invest. They have programs, they have the education, the seminars, speakers that would come to us inside of our leadership conferences and allow us to learn from them. So we really had the, world in front of us. We just had to show that we wanted it, right? We had to be in the right room at the right time to escalate our own careers, but they saw the potential, they recognized it, and they had programs for us to take part in if you wanted to.
It's so interesting to hear. That's so good to hear that because, of course, we all know the brand. We all know the name. We know the locations. Marriott's everywhere, right? And it's a wonderful brand. What we don't know is what you just explained. It sounds like they have a wonderful culture of investing in their people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been around for 15 years, the advanced engineering program, and it's evolved over time because they're listening too, right? They're learning from their teams and it's evolved. I took it back in 2015, that class today in 2025, who's led by Ruben Furtado, it has transitioned from him. So they're elevating and taking it to the next level because they're also taking a breath, listening, learning, and deploying.
Love that. I do have another follow-up. Promise we'll get to a second question at some point here, Frank. But this is great stuff from you. So You mentioned mentors, and just I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was speaking with someone, and they said, I never got a good mentor in my life, and I wish I had done it early on. So I think that's something that a lot of people face. I faced it. Thankfully, I've had plenty of now at this point great mentors who have done such great things for me and my career and my family. How did you find your mentor or mentors, and what advice would you give others?
I didn't want to be the smartest guy in the room. So I looked for those individuals, those leaders in those moments in my own life. I would say Nicholas Woolen is one of those. He's the VP of Americas for Marriott International. He took me under his wing and really gave me the comfort level to blossom. I would also say Bill Mitchell doesn't realize it, the director of engineering at the New York Marriott Marquis, phenomenal leader and very knowledgeable in his own skill set. And you start to have those one-off conversations. A lot of my mentors don't realize that they're my mentor. It just
Mhm.
becomes that first phone call you make. Brian Peterson, my facility services director at Marriott International, my last 5 years with them, he is my HVAC guru go-to and will always pick up the phone and have the time to talk. And I do the same thing. So I learned that it doesn't necessarily have to be classified hard line in the sand. This is my mentor, but who is your go-to? Who's that number one person in your phone you're going to call today? If you run into an issue, whether it be HR skills, soft presentation skills, leading through a challenge, you need to have those resources and who you count on. You may already have that identified, but it hasn't been mentioned out in public.
You mentioned leading through a challenge. All wonderful, by the way. Great advice. Let's talk about working through catastrophic events because you've had your share of having to do that.
Yeah, I would say it's been used in my interviews quite a few times of understanding how young I was in my career, where I came from. And my explanation throughout that process was the experiences I have in the last 5 to 10 years. There are leaders that have 40 years in their own craft that haven't experienced it. And some of those are hurricane related. When I was at Hyatt Regency New Brunswick, we went through the hurricane back in 2011, and that was my first flood event. We were a hotel where all the emergency responders were coming to, families were coming to, and I was first in my role as a director of engineering, very green, not knowing. Our owner was very supportive, who was across the street. We were pumping out the river, right? So it's not about us being able to solve the problem of a flooding river. You can't out pump a river, but we were resilient. We were showing something to our team. We were leading through this event by our own right and being able to partner with all of our resources and making sure that we could stay open. And we came 6 inches from the curb of our switchgear room with not having an event, not having a power failure of the entire building. Certainly we were without power. We were on emergency generator, but that life event was one of 3 hurricanes that I've been through. And each of them were different. One of them was a power loss where we were out, the entire town was out in Westchester, New York. And how do you deploy those resources? That power loss is different than a flood, right? Or a fire you can put out, right? There's a means to the end of a fire. There may not be that window of light in a flood, and you still have to plan accordingly. You have to have your contingencies. And when you're looking at what's in front of you, you have to take that breath. You have to step back and say, look at what's around me, and everyone is counting on me to come through, even my team. And how do you show them that you're going to put on your boots? You're going to be in it together. You're going to be with them through the event. And you're not just going to dictate through that event. You're going to show them this is what we're going to do. You're going to collaborate. You're going to have conversations. We're going to try things. They may not work. And you're going to have to go back to your disaster program, right? We all have them, but do we practice them? Do we truly embrace that practice? Do we truly have the empathy with that associate to connect the reasons why? Are we showing them that if there's a fire alarm, it's not because we want to have a fire alarm. It's not because we want to negatively impact their productivity. That's an event. We need to respond. But how do we make sure that we're all responding correctly, appropriately in training? And something that has given me guidance throughout my time, is a book called Flawless Execution. And it was a guest speaker that we had at one of our meetings. They talked about the power of debriefing, and debriefing in a way of you're taking off your name badge at the door. It's no longer Frank Rhodes, Senior Director of CapEx and Facilities. It's Frank Rhodes II that puts his pants on the same way as Jay, right? We're coming together to say, what did we learn? What maybe didn't go as planned, and what may have went wrong, and how do we improve it? So you got to plan, you got to brief, execute, debrief, and then you're going to win. And that methodology in the book that came from Flawless Execution, those are Blue Angel pilots. They do that after every flight, and they are perfect. But if they're off 1 millimeter, they're going to debrief why, and they're going to figure it out. And that's something that we miss within our industry, is taking that criticism and that feedback and doing it together in a meaningful way that'll show success the next time that you encounter that. So those are the methods as I'm going through a catastrophic event, whether that be norovirus, whether that be a Legionella case, a hurricane, a fire, a flood, or even trying to hire talent, right? That could be a catastrophic event depending on how many openings you have in your company and what you're trying to solve for. But that debrief is key, in making sure that everyone's name tag is left at the door so that you could have a meaningful conversation, and come out with some action plans.
So I love that, because that framework, the way you just laid it out, has not come up on the show yet. Leave your name tag at the door, those specific words. Great leadership advice, by the way. All the whole walkthrough you just did, I heard a lot of lead by example, humility, a lot of that. Two follow-ups for you, Frank. The debrief itself, how do you now? Could you just maybe unpack a little bit more of leave the name tag at the door? How do you create that safe space for someone to actually say, yeah, well, I could have done this better?
It is not easy in a room where you have your entire team to get meaningful collaboration. You're going to have to find the ways in order to do that. And a true leader knows every leader on their team, how they need to be approached. Are they going to engage in the conversation? Are they going to be hesitant or maybe reserved? Allow that to happen in the room. Read the room, understand it, but you have to then support those team members that didn't have the voice and take them into a one-on-one. Allow them to be in a safe space where they are not feeling that they're getting exposed or exposing others because they're not comfortable. Not everyone can just go into a room and have that conversation about, no, I did this incorrectly. This is what I should have done. And here's what I look to do in the next step. In a one-on-one, meeting that leader or that individual or that associate where they are and what will allow them to be comforted in that conversation. As leaders, we need to figure that out. It's on us to understand our own associates. It's on us as leaders to know what will be the right environment and how can they be approached to show and share their voice. And that's a difficult situation to understand if you're just coming into a company like I am at Benchmark Senior Living. I'm learning my team. I'm learning Benchmark at a rapid pace, and sometimes it's explained as turning on that fire pump and you're going after it, but you're going to continue to go after it. But it's meeting our associates where they are in those conversations, but still hosting a roundtable, hosting that collaboration session, and then finding the ways that you need to debrief with your team that were not as engaged or participating as you would have liked. But that's not on them as the associates. It's on us as a leader to make sure that happens.
Great distinction. Yes, agreed. Now, when there's a catastrophic event, a shift slightly here, but within the framework of catastrophic events, you walked us through how you handle it when it occurs, the leadership, the execution. How do you keep prepared, or how do you get prepared? Because you don't know when it will occur.
That is the life of a facility manager, right? We are constantly changing our plan, and we may have a plan for the week, and that plan changes every day. We have to be able to adjust on the fly. We have to be able to understand what you're coming against in that moment and what you're dealing with. Everyone in our industry at any given moment could get a phone call if they're a remote leader or if they're on, on the ground in the trenches at that particular location. Our mindset has to evolve and be that chameleon. And it's not an easy exercise to understand. There are times that we have a plan for the year, right? We've set our goal for December 31st, 2025 as a leader. And there are hurdles that come along the way. And those hurdles should not derail your ultimate plan for 2025. They need to be addressed and overcome in that moment. But all the tools and the resources that you have in your tool bag, those have to come out. Those plans that you've practiced, those education seminars, those little coffee chats, that quarter coffee at the copier. What would you do in this situation? Using ChatGPT, using AI resources and tools to train, using innovation to understand that tool or that resource can be deployed at that moment. So don't forget your tool bag and make sure it's always on the ready so that you can deploy appropriately. And there's times that you might not have that resource. You might not have that tool. You may not know that your company is changing vendors for your disaster restoration. You may not know that your company has realigned with the organization, who your leader is. Who can you reach out to if you're going through an event and you now need a resource? You're phoning that friend. You're phoning that mentor. You always have to be on the ready, but allow yourself to take that breath and be in that moment, because you might be in a spreadsheet. You may be focused on the business at hand, and now you got to shift and go over to, I've got to pause that, even though that's due at 5:05 in 20 minutes. We now have to do this. And that is the plan. That is the execution. But being able to shift or downshift at any given moment is really what's important and critical as a true SM. Mm-hmm. We know our skills, right? We know our buildings, we know our assets, we know our teams, and believing in it and knowing that you have given them the resources, the training, the opportunities to go through them themselves. But to your point, there are times that it's difficult. There's times that we forget, or that individual that's in that moment forgets, even though they know. Now their blood is elevated, right? Now there's that high sense of awareness, or that escalated anxiety, or that escalated unknown, right? How do you do that? Cultivates over time, right? Those leaders that have been in position or dealt with a situation, and it goes back to some of the catastrophes I've been in over the past, 18 years or more than someone would ever experience in their 40, 50 years that may never experience it. But it allows you to pivot in those moments, right? I want to be that phone call. I get excited about it. Catastrophes are difficult at times, but I get excited because now that's my time to shine, right? We're a leader. We're in the FM. We want to be the ones that are supporting and putting out that current catastrophe, showing support, giving resources from afar. And that's not easy to overcome when you're going through it in the heat of the moment, in your face in the community. You have all your team looking at you. There's a lot of pressure that builds up, and being able to handle the pressure is really where you can succeed. And I've lost my cool a few times, don't get me wrong, and had to learn from that. But that was my own inexperience, or maybe lacking confidence, knowing I know what to do, but maybe someone's watching that I felt intimidated by, or anyone that's listening could have the same experience, but it's taking that breath.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Coludis, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Coludis is there to make hard work easy. Visit coludis.com today to get started. So you just grounded it right back to where I was going to go, Frank. All of that was fantastic. Thank you. And so you reminded me of one thing. I think I learned this from a few of my military friends. Like you in a crisis situation, you will only and always respond to your highest level of training. And you're laying that out basically in this as well. And you're grounding it back to take that breath, don't react, respond. That's what I'm hearing.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. You mentioned, I think you just about 10 minutes ago, you equated it could be a catastrophic event or classified as one if you didn't have enough talent and you needed a ton of talent. So you've spoken in the past about advocacy for talent. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
This is one of my passions in FM and as a leader, and started within the IFMA Boston uh, board, my own tenure there, and still acting as the immediate past president. We have a talent gap amongst us, whether certain industries want to realize it, understand it, and support and try to figure out that plan to bridge the gap. Our talent gap is about 5 years, behind. And what I'm talking about there is we have what's called in the industry, as everybody's heard, silver tsunami or retirements. And some of those are getting prolonged because of our economics that we're going through today. But we're not seeing universities hold a certificate, an associate, a bachelor's, a master's in FM. They're seeing a decline in enrollment. They're not seeing leaders that want to come into that industry because they don't know. And that's really what this show is about, right? What IFMA Boston is about. How do we reach out to Skills USA kids? How do we reach out to the VOTEC schools? How do we engage in the high school auditoriums and be speakers, right? Everybody wants to hear about the doctor, the lawyer, the attorney, anyone that's driving the Lamborghini, but I would put any one of the FM leaders against any one of them because they're saving more lives than they are, because we're running a building that has a heightened awareness, right? How many of us are leading life science? How many of us are leading hospitality? Your family's entrusting. I'm leading senior living. You're entrusting your family and your loved ones with us within your facility. And if I don't get that right, that's a problem. And we are going to need, as a team, as an industry, as the voice, make sure that the word is getting out that this is a fruitful career and it is a rewarding career. And we are saving lives. When you really boil it down, if you look at the indoor air quality, the water risk, all of the measures that we look at on a daily basis and try to respond to or organize or strategize against and how we manage buildings, it is amazing. And it is something that will give you peace of mind. It will be something that gives you that reward at night when you go back to your family and make sure that you're thanking them for everything they're doing so you can be on the front line. But our talent gap is real, and being able to hit any and all sectors that will listen is where we need to voice and make sure that we're having side conversations, right? My 8, 6, and 3-year-old, I hope they go in the industry. I want them to be a plumber, HVAC tech, electrician, a facility manager. That's the next wave.
I absolutely. So your passion is infectious. I felt it the first time we talked with each other, Frank, and I just love the conviction you bring to this and how much you believe in and support what we all do. So what have you seen, whether it's through IFMA or your other companies, Marriott, whatever, what's working the best in terms of actually acquiring talent or maybe training them up?
I use social media. If you followed my LinkedIn account, I am always putting posts out there, recognizing my team, making sure I'm using the right hashtags, right companies, right associations, so that that word can get spread further out. And it is through a lot of partnerships, specifically through IFMA, could be through your company that you have, and there might be a partnership with the trades or certain contractors you work with. But how do you get out to the younger generation? And something that we've been very successful at in IFMA Boston is we were able to bring our first facilitathon to the state of Mass, which is through the Skills USA Foundation. And a facilitathon to host one was not an easy process. And it took 3+ years for us to get approved to host one. And we had 2 or 3 the first year. You had 10, then you had 10 again, but we were getting consistent 10, right? Maybe 15. But in the very beginning, you're going to start off slow. And then how do you have networking events with young professionals? How do you speak to all the young professionals out there and have a sounding board? Because their ways of communicating what reaches out to them might not be an email, right? May not be a phone call. And that's what our generation and other generations have to understand, is that put yourself out there, right? Take them out for a cup of coffee, a cocktail, whatever it is, but make sure that you're going to your own local low-tech, right? You may be a part of an association, but get involved. Find out where they have Skills USA meetings, or where do they have events that you can go be a judge at, and then drop your business card, right? Have that on my cell phone if anything happens. There are so many interviews that I've gone through from Ferris State University, where I went to college, and I still connected with those throughout their right career. So even though they don't work for me directly, how do you stay in tune? How do you stay connected and make them feel special, right? Heard, understood, and then they will start to spread it for us, right? So it's not just the Ponzi scheme, right? The Amway of the world. How do you get that one person? I got one more, and they're going to talk to this, but it's every day, right? It's putting yourself out there, and that is not easy to do for a lot of our FMs and those leaders, because they may not feel comfortable doing that. But once you get them in a room, or you get them in the mechanical room, game over, right? They're digging in, they love it, and their passion comes out. But we need to have more advocates that are willing to go into these areas, even in a busy world, right? Demanding world, work-life balance, all of the things. We have to still take some time to network, take the time to be a part of associations, and take the time to pay it forward. Somebody did it to us, right? As I started out, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have mentors. And you have to pay it forward too, and make sure that we're not letting this FM stop just at our career, at ground zero with us. There's more to come.
What a walkthrough. Again, wealth of information and knowledge, Frank. How have you seen in your experience students or people who come to a facilitathon, and how is it received? How do they engage?
They are off from a shy perspective in the beginning, right? They're coming into the unknown. They've got somebody that might be in a suit, or they see a title, and they're trying to say, are they approachable, right? Are they not? Can I have a conversation with them? We've got to, again, lead by example, right? And allow them to be comfortable, but recognize, how do we meet them where they are? So it's not easy for anyone that's kind of starting their career and trying to say, how do I get into the industry? Cool. What company should I work for? What's right, wrong? What's a 401k, right? Let's not just talk about the career here. Maybe it's financials. But it is uneasy for a lot of those young leaders that are just starting their career as a young professional. But we have to embrace it as leaders, and we are the ones that need to allow them to feel comforted, because they might bring a few more members with them next time.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We still have a few things to cover, and I'm mindful of your time. And thank you again for investing it, Frank. You've touched on your family 2 or 3 times already. And I think one of the times we spoke, you mentioned, who are the unsung heroes in our life? I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, I'll try not to get emotional about this, but they're the actual reason I'm at Benchmark Senior Living today. I had a phenomenal career at Marriott International. I have a lot to be thankful for, but there are moments that I didn't realize the impact of the family. Me traveling, right? Getting on that airplane to go to that catastrophic event, or be there for that leader or that property as they were going through their own transitions, and what do they need in that moment, right? As you mentioned, right? How do you become that chameleon, or make sure that you're going to the most important thing at that moment in time. And, the family is the one that's going to be there in the end, right? They're the ones that are sacrificing as well. And it hit me hard Q4 of last year. I got to spend a lot of time at home because of some other things that were going on. And in a positive way, nothing happened with the family, but I was showing the transition in front of my eyes, how much they were coming, right? And experiencing with me. I was forgetting to take a breath at home, right? And forgetting to be present at home. And it's hard to hit yourself with that, right? You debrief internally. And the transition has been nothing but positive, nothing but um, just loving, right? And it allows me to succeed even more. And it gives me more drive to give Benchmark Senior Living everything I got and make sure that they're successful for the next 27 years. This company started in 1997 with Tom Grape, the CEO. And we're in a pivotal moment of innovation, and it's going to take some work, but I couldn't do it without my family, right? They're the foundation of why I do what I do every day.
I'm so happy for you and to hear that. And, I know that that touched me big time, and I'm sure it did all the listeners, right? Everyone who has a family. And I want to give credit to one of my greatest mentors and boss, Jim Kalutis, the owner of our company. He always says exactly what you just said. Um, the reason we do everything here at work is for what we have at home and who we have at home, right? That's why we do
That's,
what we do here. So, yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Frank.
Thank you very much.
Um, I know we touched on, catastrophic events, and I don't want to really go back to the challenges, although that's where the real learning and sharing lives, I think, like the challenges we face and how we got through them. So were there other challenges you wanted to dig into and any best practices for people listening, whether it be the norovirus or, when you're locked down or anything else you'd like to share on that we could learn from?
Yeah. Some advice I would give to any FM leader that's out there today is, approaching any situation with your eyes wide open, right? You may have gone through that event before. It may be brand new to you, but you do need to come in with your eyes wide open, being able to, playfully understand that, yes, this is a big event or an issue that I need to resolve. But if you're not looking at everything, you're going to make a mistake. If you're not, again, taking that breath and pausing and looking around and saying, who's here today, right? That we can deploy, who's not here. We need to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right spots, but not being afraid to use your resources. There are times our FM leaders get caught in that. I want to be the guy that fixed it, right? I'm gonna be the problem solver. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be able to empower my team. I want to ensure that they know that I entrust in them and that I am putting them in the right spot in that moment to be successful and show their skills and then recognize them for that. It's not about my own recognition. It's about my team. None of us can be successful without our team. We could have all the right playbooks. We could say all the right things, but if you don't have a team behind you, you're not going anywhere, right? You're not going to improve that catastrophic event for the better. You're not going to be able to solve that catastrophic event without them. And it's going to be more difficult, right? It's very hard to swim upstream, right? In a canoe with a half a paddle.
Well said. Very well said. I want to touch on IFMA a bit more because let me just all right, we've had how many guests now? So the synergy and partnership and collaboration between our two organizations is really growing and magnifying, and I am so grateful for it. Andrew Del Preet, Matt Dean, Ray T-Burge, they're all from Boston, as you are, and Tatiana Blankenship of the Raleigh-Durham area down south. Like really good representation. I've learned so much. All of our listeners have. Any advice you'd give to people on, and I'll ask each one of you guys this, you know that every time, but getting involved with IFMA, I think you mentioned the why you would do so, but any words on that?
One, let me take a step back and say, I can't wait for the day that we collaborate with Facility Rockstars and we host an event together because we are stronger together. And we're all doing the same thing. We are all looking out for our FM industry, and the more partnerships we have, the better. And this has been an amazing partnership, but it goes back to the basics, right? Networking. That's why
Mhm.
we exist. And this conversation started with Ray. When you interviewed Ray, Ray came back to our board meeting and said, you got to get involved. You got to know Jay. Let's listen to his podcast. He's reaching out to an audience that we need to understand. And how do we do that, right? At IFMA Boston, we're not doing podcasts that often, or interviews, or other resources are being deployed, right? We've got white papers, we've got pop-ups that we do, we have webinars, we have in-person. So anyone that's looking to get in the industry, just reach out. We want you to be involved, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a volunteer. It doesn't mean that you have to be on the board. We want you just simply to be a part of the chapter and feed you information. Our number one goal is to be your number one resource and your go-to. If you're going through something for the first time and you're not comfortable going to your boss about it within your organization, reach out. We're going to have unsolicited advice. We're not going to have any preconceived notions. We want you to succeed. And we all have a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer that's waiting for you. We are your resource to call, but get involved. You can certainly see everything that we do as a chapter, to be out in the industry and play a role within our own, geographic location and impact them in a positive way. But we're trying to reach out through any ways possible, right? It can be in person, virtual, reading our white paper, email conversations. What's coming up in September? Actually, I think it moved to first week of October is World Workplace. That is put on by IFMA. And that's something you should all attend as a newcomer, or someone that's a young professional, because everyone in the business is there, but they're there for you. And I think that's one of the pieces that gets missed is, what's the value of an association? Why should I join? Why not? Okay, my company doesn't reimburse me. Think of it as an investment in you. You want to invest in you. If you don't invest in you, who else is going to, right? But I can tell you the associations will. They're nonprofit. They're not there for the money, right? We're there for the talent, the organization, and the people, and to make our industry stronger than ever. So get involved. Anyone that you want to reach out to, myself included, Gio, who's our executive director, Andrew Dalpreet, Colby Filipino, any one of us would be happy to have that conversation. And we're willing and able to invest back into you with your own accreditation, right? So you all heard I have a CFM. Boston offers that. You can get involved in how do you educate yourself and continuous learning, because again, look at it as an investment in yourself and your career, your own growth potential.
It's so powerful. So powerful. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like, it's a community. That's the way I view it too. It's really a community of, like-minded individuals who all really want to help each other. And
Absolutely.
it's unlimited resources, literally unlimited resources. You can go and get that answer. Like you said, if you're not getting it within your own company, reach out and get it through IFMA or through us or whatever resource you're going to use. So we just learned huge amounts from you, Frank, but what's behind the scenes, man? Like, what do you do when you're not doing everything we just talked about?
So, a lot of it is family right now, but I would say my passion I don't get to do often. And, my neighbor does get to do often is woodworking, or doing some type of building project. I started out in the trade. I was a carpenter. And I love getting my hands dirty and showing my kids that you can do it too. So again, it's that teaching aspect of the business, but I love woodworking. We do a lot of bike rides, together as a family. We don't get to travel as often as we'd like. Our kids are 8, 6, and 3. So it is a busy household, personally as well. But anytime we can go out to the movies is something I love to do, especially with my son, Zach, or my daughter, Mackenzie. It's just those moments, but I love movies and I love woodworking and anything that has to do with building, or architecture itself. So, big into those components of my life.
I think your work-life balance sounds amazing. So good for you. Happy for you.
Thank you, sir.
So on the woodworking, what's your favorite piece or your favorite woodworking accomplishment?
So I've got two, and one's a rough story, but My first one is I made a grandfather clock out of mahogany when I was in high school. So every project I did in high school went to my family, my mom and dad. And the one that I loved the most, it was probably my biggest project, was a china cabinet. But unfortunately, that got taken out by a tree at my parents' house. They had experienced a catastrophic event, right? Catastrophic event. Tree goes through the house. Okay, let's relocate everything outside. It was safe at that moment. Another tree comes down, takes out the actual storage unit. And so my china cabinet's in half now. But there was one Christmas I made every present that was some type of woodworking piece for my family. But I love to build anything. But my grandfather clock is certainly pretty special that I don't get to see as often as I'd like.
Oh, wow. That's the first time I've ever heard a story about a high school student making a mahogany grandfather clock. That is very impressive, Frank. Very
Thank you.
impressive.
Thank you.
So, how would people get in touch with you? Because I'm sure they're going to have tons of questions. So, what's the best way? What's easy for you, for them? How do we connect you?
Sure. No, absolutely. So, social media, LinkedIn, message me. I'll be able to give you my cell phone number if you message me directly through LinkedIn, and I'll give all those ways to contact me after this. But my email is on there for Benchmark Senior Living. My cell phone is on LinkedIn. But I would say that's your good first step. And then look at that afterwards for even further collaboration. But don't be afraid to reach out. We want to hear from you.
Frank, I cannot thank you enough for, again, spending the time, sharing everything you did. It's truly a pleasure. And thank you very much for doing this with us.
No, it's been a great afternoon, Jay. Thank you so much.
Of course. For everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the show. I can't see how you didn't love this show. And if you did, please tell a friend, subscribe, follow the channel. And until next week, we'll see everybody on the next episode. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.